All right, guys, talking about lines today. Everything you want to know about lines and more. Here we go. Lines. All right, so first of all, let's start with slope. And you've heard this for a long time now. Slope is rise over run. Also, the difference in the y's over difference in the x's. There is no slope of a vertical line. We'll talk about that in this picture real quick. Picture the red lines show you positive slopes. The red lines, they rise as they're going left to right. The negative slope, if you look at the blue ones, they're falling as you look at them from left to right. Also, it's the bigger the number, the steeper the slope. So like 5 is much steeper than slope 2, which is steeper than slope 1, which is steeper than slope 1/2. Look what slope 0 looks like. Slope 0 is a horizontal line. One reason you cannot have a vertical line at the slope, the reason it's undefined is because, remember, as the numbers get bigger and bigger, the slope gets steeper and steeper. Well, the numbers never get to the final number. There's no final number, so you can never get completely vertical. Okay, so that's one reason, not the only reason why, but one reason why. All right, so the first thing I ask you to do tomorrow is just find some slopes. This one says find the slope of the line that passes through those 2 points. Remember, slope is y minus y. The change in the y's over the change in the x's. So 5 minus 1 over 8 minus 2. 5 minus 1 is 4. 8 minus 2 is 6. Always reduce. Slope is 2/3, which means as x changes by 2, y is going to change by 3. So it's really the change in y based on the change in x. Point slope form, you've seen this before too. We're going to use this the most today. Point slope form is y minus y1 equals slope times x minus x1. That's how you find an equation of a line that passes through a point, and you know the slope, which is what you normally have. So we're going to use this the most. Let's try a couple. It says find an equation of the line with the given characteristics. The first one says it passes through negative 3, and has slope negative 1/3. I'm just going to do point slope form. So I'm going to say y minus negative 3, which is really y plus 3, equals the slope times x minus 1. And what they want you to do is they want you to finish that up in slope-intercept form. So let's go ahead and multiply through by the negative 1/3. Then I'm going to move the 3 over. 3 is really 9/3, so 1 minus 9/3 is negative 8/3. And there's that. There's part A. Part B says passes through this. Now, the only difference on part B is I don't know the slope. So you're going to take a second on part B and find the slope. So I'm going to go y minus y over x minus x. Now we get 6 over negative 4, which is negative 3/2. So there's my slope. And you can pick either point you want to. I'm going to take that point just because it's smaller and do the point slope form again. Y minus 2 is the slope times x minus negative 1, which is really x plus 1. All right, so I'm going to multiply through by the negative 3/2. My negative sign is not showing it very well. That's an x. And move the 2 over. Now 2 is really 4/2. So if I bring positive 4/2, not the negative 3/2, that gives me positive 1/2. And there's the equation. That's part B. Slope-intercept form. Everybody very familiar with slope-intercept form for some reason. Y equals mx plus b. All right, M is slope, b is y-intercept. Not sure why, but that's what they are, mx plus b. Now, the only problem with slope-intercept form is the only really good time to use it is if you know both the slope and the intercept. If you don't know both of those, you're better off using point slope form. But this one, look at this problem I have down here. Find an equation of the line with slope 3 and the y-intercept, so you know both of them. So you can just substitute the slope in for the m, the negative 2m for the b, and you have it there. There's your slope-intercept form of that line. And again, really the only good time to use that is if you know both of those. Otherwise, it's way too much work. All right, vertical lines and horizontal. Vertical lines only have an x. For example, x equals 2 would be a vertical line that went through the x-axis at 2. Horizontal lines only have a y. Like y equals 3, we'd cross the y-axis right at 3. It'd be horizontal, would not touch the x-axis at all. They're going to have you graph some. This form, when you see an equation in that form right there, your book calls this general form. Everything's on one side, zeros on the other side. My advice on graphing a general form is to take the constant term, the 12, to the other side. Let's make that positive 12 right there. And I do this method I'll show you in class tomorrow called cover. Really, I'm just finding the intercepts. If you take your finger and cover up the 3y, which I can't do in the video, that's like the 3y is not even there. They will leave 2x equals 12, which means x is 6. So I'm going to put a point at x is 6. That's the x-intercept. If I did the same thing for the x, if I covered up the x, it would leave negative 3y equals 12. I'm really putting 0 in form is what I'm doing. And divide by negative 3, you would get the y-intercept as negative 4. So I'll put the point at -4. All it takes is 2 points to graph a line. And there they are. Connect the dots. La, la, la. And you have it. Okay, so not that big a deal. Now, it'll make more sense tomorrow in class, and I can actually show you what I'm physically doing there. But really, to find the x-intercept, you put a 0 in for the y. To find the y-intercept, you put a 0 in for x. So you're putting a 0 in for the opposite variable. Couple sentences here. Parallel lines have the same slope. That should be like, no duh. If the line has this steepness, another one has the same steepness, they're going to be parallel. They're never going to intercept because they have the same slope or same steepness. Perpendicular is the weird one. Their slopes are opposite reciprocals. So if one line has a slope 1/2, the perpendicular line will be -2. You got to do the opposite side and the reciprocal. You got to do both. Let me show you one of these. Last slide. Thanks for hanging in there. It says find an equation of the line that is perpendicular to this line and passes through the origin. Okay, so first thing I need to do is figure out what the slope of this line is. Then I'm going to show you a little trick here that you may not remember from algebra, and that is this. Whenever you have an equation in standard form or general form, the slope, you can find slope by doing this. You can do -a over b. And a is the 4 and b is the 6. So in this line, the slope is -4 sixths, which is really -2 thirds. That's a good little trick. Instead of having to put it in slope intercept form and all that, you can just tell what the slope is. Now, I need the line perpendicular to it, so I'm going to use slope 3/2, the opposite reciprocal. And it says it passes through the origin, which is the best point it could pass through. So I'm going to do point slope, y minus y, is 3/2 x minus 0. Now, y minus 0 is just y. 3/2 times x is 3/2 x. And there it is. That's the line that is perpendicular to the first one, and it passes through the origin. And that's all you got to do. All right? Good job. Everything you want to know about lines and more. We'll work on it in class tomorrow. Can't wait to see you then. See ya.